What if I told you the very moment you walk away is the exact moment he starts to fall hard for you? Not when you were giving your all, not when you stayed and waited and hoped he'd change, but when you finally chose you. That's when everything shifted. You see, when you're always there, he gets comfortable. He assumes your love is endless. But the second you disappear with grace, he's forced to confront what he lost. He's forced to confront what he lost. It's not just about your absence, it's about the standard you set by walking away. That quiet power speaks louder than any words you ever said. He doesn't process the loss right away. It's when he's alone, when there's no one texting him good morning, when the silence starts to feel heavy, that's when it hits. He starts comparing every new woman to you, and none of them feel the same because they don't have your depth, your strength, your emotional presence. And then it hits him. You weren't just another girl, you were the real deal. And now he's falling, but this time you're no longer there to catch him. That's the real reason he falls hard after you walk away. When you're always available to someone, whether it's emotionally, physically, or just in the way you show up constantly, it starts to feel ordinary. Familiarity over time can breed a kind of blindness. We begin to take for granted what's right in front of us. And when you're always there, always replying quickly, always saying yes, always being the emotional support system, something dangerous happens. He stops seeing you as a privilege and starts seeing you as a fixture. This isn't because he's a bad person or malicious, it's just human psychology. We tend to assign more value to things that are scarce, not because they change, but because our access to them is limited. And the truth is, we often don't fully appreciate something until it's no longer within arm's reach. That's why walking away can have such a powerful impact, not just as a strategic move, but as an honest expression of your self-worth. It's in your absence that you feel your presence the most. Think about it. When you're no longer replying right away, when your energy isn't circling him constantly, when he doesn't feel that emotional anchor you used to provide, he begins to feel something unfamiliar. It's the feeling of loss. The silence you leave behind becomes louder than any words you could have said while you were still there. Suddenly, he's not just thinking about you, he's craving you. He starts replaying memories, wondering where you went, what you're doing, and why you're no longer trying. Here's the thing most people don't realize. Emotional availability, when it's not reciprocated, becomes a one-sided weight. You end up investing, giving, showing up, while they sit back, often unbothered, simply because they're not afraid to lose you. But the moment you stop pouring energy into someone who's not meeting you halfway, you create a void. And that void isn't empty. It's charged with all the things he used to receive from you without even noticing. He begins to remember the effort you made, the way you listened, the encouragement you offered, the softness you brought into his chaotic world. And suddenly, those things aren't a given anymore. He's left sitting in the quiet of his own thoughts. And that silence becomes a mirror. He starts to reflect not just on what he lost, but why he lost it. He may not have realized it while you were present, but the moment you walk away, it becomes crystal clear. Your presence had weight. When you're no longer chasing him, no longer reaching out, no longer making it easy, he has to ask himself why. And that question leads to a cascade of realizations. He might have thought you'd always be there, that no matter how inconsistent he was, you'd still show up. But now your absence confronts that assumption. It's no longer about you needing him. It's about him beginning to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he needed you more than he realized. This shift is subtle, but it's seismic. he starts to feel like the one who's been left behind, not just physically, but emotionally. He wonders if someone else is getting the attention he took for granted. He questions whether he misjudged your worth. He thinks about the fact that you were willing to leave, not out of spite, but out of strength. And that thought doesn't just stir regret, it stirs attraction. Because nothing is more magnetic than someone who knows their value and doesn't beg to be seen. It's in that moment that his perception of you transforms. You're no longer the person waiting on the other end of a text. You're not the emotional cushion he leaned on when it suited him. You become the one who walked away when it stopped being enough. And that's what shakes him. That's when he realizes he's not in control of the situation, you are. And that realization hits deep. Most of us are taught to believe that closeness keeps a relationship alive, but sometimes distance is what brings the truth to the surface. When you walk away, you're not punishing him, you're just removing your energy from a place it was being taken for granted. And the result? He finally starts to value it. Not because you yelled, not because you pleaded, but because you left with dignity. And that silence became louder than anything you could have said. The real reason he falls hard after you walk away is because your absence does what your presence never could. It wakes him up. When a woman walks away, it's not just about creating distance. It's about making a statement without saying a word. And what's fascinating is that often it's not the act of walking away that impacts him most. It's the reason behind it. Because when you walk away, not in anger, not in drama, not in an attempt to get a reaction, but with quiet conviction, it speaks volumes about your standards. And let me tell you, your standards speak far louder than your words ever could. You see, when a woman decides to walk away, especially from someone she cares about, it isn't because she stopped feeling. It's because she finally realized her feelings were no longer being met with the same energy, care, or consistency. And when she makes that choice from a place of self-respect rather than resentment, something powerful happens. That man is suddenly confronted with a truth he hadn't been forced to look at before, that her love was not unconditional to mistreatment, that her kindness was not a pass for his complacency, that her presence was a privilege, not a given. Now, here's the part that stings for him. He may have assumed you would always be there. Maybe he got used to the daily texts, your patience, the way you understood him when no one else did. Maybe he even believed he had all the time in the world to figure things out, to give more, to step up. But when you walk away, not in retaliation, but in quiet resolution, it pulls the curtain back on all the excuses, he told himself. Because suddenly, you're not chasing, you're not negotiating your worth, you're not trying to prove that you're enough. You're done trying to earn what should have been freely given. And that shift, that's what pierces his reality. It's like holding up a mirror that says, this is who I am, and this is what I need. If you're not ready to meet me there, I won't stand still and wait for you to catch up. He starts replaying everything, those moments where you gave him space, where you explained what you needed with patience, where you lowered your needs thinking it might make things easier for him. And for the first time, he sees that what he mistook for ease was actually you compromising with love. And now that you've taken that love away, not as punishment, but as a boundary, it forces him to realize that you had standards all along. And those standards weren't about pushing him away. They were about protecting your peace, your heart, your energy. Here's something people often miss. When a man sees that you can walk away from him, he sees that you can walk away from anyone who doesn't value you. And that hits different. It shifts the power dynamic. Not because you're trying to be powerful, but because you're being authentic. You're not trying to make a statement, but your actions become one. You're not trying to teach him a lesson, but the silence teaches him everything. Because real confidence doesn't yell, it doesn't chase, it doesn't beg. Real confidence says, I love you, but I love me more. I see your potential, but I refuse to shrink for it. I hoped you'd meet me here, but I'm not staying in a space that keeps me small. And this is the turning point for him. This is where he stops looking at you as someone who was just there and starts realizing that you were someone he chose to take for granted. He begins to understand that your walk wasn't about giving up on him, it was about choosing yourself. That's when it finally dawns on him that you weren't asking for too much, you were just asking the wrong person. It's in your absence that he sees your true value. Not because you tried to prove it, but because you refused to argue for it. And here's the irony. Now he wants to chase. Now that you're no longer convincing him of your worth, it becomes undeniable to him. Because what's rare, what's genuine, what's self-respecting, those things don't go unnoticed forever. He may not have seen it before, but walking away forced him to face what he didn't want to lose until it was already gone. And maybe he will reach out. Maybe he'll come back with promises and clarity and realizations. But by that point, it's not about him anymore. Because walking away wasn't just about what you left behind. It was about what you walked toward, a stronger version of yourself. A future where you're no longer waiting for someone to choose you. You've already chosen yourself. And that's when he falls hard. Because he finally sees you as you were all along. Unshakable men don't process emotion in the moment. We're wired differently, while women often feel things in real time. Disappointment, distance, emotional disconnect. Many men only start to confront those emotions when there's a break in the pattern, when something shifts dramatically, when you're gone. See, when you're in his life, even if things are rocky, even if he knows deep down he's not showing up the way you deserve, there's a part of him that believes you'll always be there, that he has time to figure things out, time to do better later. There's a certain emotional laziness that takes over when we think someone's love is on tap. Always ready, always pouring. So what happens when you walk away? Suddenly, there's a silence. Not just the silence of no texts or calls, though yes, that's there. But it's deeper than that. It's the silence of a missing presence. The silence of not feeling your emotional investment anymore. It's the difference between walking into a room that was once full of light and finding it dark and empty. That absence hits in ways he didn't expect. Because while he might not have consciously admitted it, he felt your love. He was benefiting from it, even if he wasn't reciprocating it in the way you needed. And here's the thing. Many men don't realize what they're actually losing until it's no longer accessible. It's not just you they're missing, it's how they felt around you. It's who they got to be in your presence. The version of themselves that felt seen, admired, maybe even capable of more than they believed. That loss triggers something powerful and painful. In that space where you used to exist, they start to notice things. Little things. The way you always made time, even when you were tired. The thoughtful messages. The way you understood things he didn't even know how to express. The gentle encouragement you gave him when he was uncertain. The softness you brought into his life. The belief you had in him, even when he didn't quite believe in himself. But in the moment, those things didn't feel like a big deal because they were constant, because you kept showing up until you didn't. And it's not just that you're gone, it's how you left. With calm, with strength, without begging, without trying to make him see your worth. That's the part that really catches him off guard. Because he's not just losing someone who was giving, loving, showing up. He's losing someone who had the power to walk away from something that wasn't serving her. That quiet confidence is confronting. It forces him to reckon with not just the relationship, but himself. It's in that reflection, alone, uncomfortable, that he starts to piece things together. The timeline rewinds in his head. He sees the missed opportunities, the conversations he dismissed, the effort he didn't match, the affection he took for granted, and what was once normal starts to feel like an extraordinary loss. Now he's in the discomfort you were in before, only now there's no one soothing it for him. You're not there to bridge the emotional gap. He has to sit in it. And this, right here, is often the moment he falls hard. Not because he suddenly became a different person overnight, but because the absence of your energy created the space for truth. Truth he was avoiding. Truth he was too distracted or too self-assured to face when you were still around. You see, it's not the breakup text or the silent treatment that wakes him up. It's the total shift in emotional dynamic. When a woman reclaims her energy, stops chasing clarity, and instead chooses her peace, that is what snaps a man out of his emotional sleep. Because it's no longer about what you're saying, it's about what you're no longer saying. No more trying to be understood. No more fighting to be seen. Just absence. Presence withdrawn. Love redirected. And suddenly, he feels the weight of everything he didn't value. Not because you were trying to punish him, but because you chose yourself. Sometimes, that's the only thing powerful enough to wake someone up. Not your pain, not your pleas, just your absence. You know, it's easy to underestimate the impact of our presence when we're consistently showing up for someone. Day in, day out, we give, we show care, we check in, we listen to their problems, we support them emotionally, even when they don't ask for it, even when they don't acknowledge it. And the truth is, most people don't really understand the depth of that until it's no longer there. That's what makes walking away so powerful. It's not about punishing someone. It's not about being dramatic or trying to teach them a lesson. It's about letting the silence reveal what your presence was always doing for them. When you walk away from a man who's taken you for granted, what you're really doing is removing a kind of emotional gravity in his life, something he was relying on without even realizing it. And when that gravity disappears, everything feels a little off balance. He may not be able to articulate it at first, but he feels it. He feels the absence of your texts in the morning. He feels the quiet when his phone doesn't light up with your name. He notices when he's had a bad day and there's no message from you saying, "I'm here if you want to talk." He starts to feel the cold space where your warmth used to be. And here's the kicker. Those little things, the small daily moments of care and attention you gave him, those weren't small, they were everything. But the reason he couldn't see that before is because they were always there. It's like background music. You don't notice how much it sets the tone of a room until someone turns it off. That's what you were. You were the rhythm, the vibe, the softness in the hard corners of his day. And the moment you walk away, he's sitting in the silence of what used to be, realizing how much that music mattered. What most people don't realize is that emotional consistency is rare. There are plenty of people who can show up once, who can impress you in the beginning, who can say the right things when they're trying to win you over. But very few people offer steady, unconditional care. And when you've been that person for someone, when you've shown up not just in your words, but in your energy and your presence, that becomes a kind of emotional safety net they start to depend on. They might not say it, they might not even show much appreciation while you're there, but make no mistake, they feel the loss when you go. The irony is, sometimes you have to remove that safety net for someone to realize they were standing on it all along. And that realization doesn't come with one moment of reflection. It comes in waves. Maybe he sees a photo of you, or hears your favorite song, or drives past a place you both used to go. And for a second, he remembers. But it's not just nostalgia, it's regret. Regret that he didn't value the things that now feel irreplaceable. He might start reaching out, testing the waters, sending a message to check in, or bringing up a memory you shared. And that's not just because he misses the conversations, it's because he misses how he felt when you were part of his life. You brought out a version of him that he liked. You made things feel more alive, more connected, more meaningful. And that's a tough thing to lose, especially when it was lost by his own indifference. Sometimes we think we have to do something more to be valued. We think if we give more, prove more, explain more, they'll finally get it. But often, the most powerful move is the one where we do less, where we step away with dignity and let the space do the talking, because space is honest. It doesn't argue, it doesn't beg, it simply shows the truth, what it feels like without you. And when someone truly feels the absence of that emotional consistency, the quiet space where your love and support used to be, it hits differently. It doesn't just sting, it opens a door for them to really see, to look back and understand that what they had wasn't ordinary, that your presence, your loyalty, your care, that was the exception, not the rule. That's why so often it's after you've walked away that he falls hard, because now he's aware of what he lost, and he's realizing that he can't just replace it with anyone. He can't fake the emotional connection he once felt so naturally with you. And that's when the regret sets in. Not because he suddenly became a better person overnight, but because the contrast between your presence and your absence is now too loud to ignore. So if you've walked away or you're thinking about it, know this: your absence has a voice, and sometimes it says more than your presence ever could. You know, we often talk about attraction as if it's purely physical. We obsess over how we look, what we wear, how we present ourselves. But what we often forget is that the most magnetic form of attraction is rooted in strength. And I'm talking about a deep, grounded sense of self-worth, a strength that says, I don't chase what isn't choosing me. When you walk away from someone who's taking you for granted, something powerful happens. You're no longer the woman trying to be enough for him. You become the woman who knows she already is. And that shift, that energy, is undeniable, because it's not just the walking away, it's why you walk. It's not to get a reaction or to teach someone a lesson or to create drama. It's because you know your peace, your happiness, your future, they're too important to waste on someone who's unsure about you. And that strength, that's the part that pierces through his emotional detachment. That's the moment he starts to see you differently, not as someone waiting for his validation, but as someone who's already whole without him. Think about that. So many women are taught to believe that being loving means being endlessly patient. Being loyal means staying no matter what. But true strength is knowing when love is no longer being served at the table and having the courage to push your chair back and leave. Most men aren't used to that. They're used to women who stay, who over-explain, who tolerate confusion. But when you walk away without begging, when you stop over-giving, when you don't try to convince him of your worth, that's when the dynamic shifts. He feels the power of your silence. He feels the loss of your softness. And for maybe the first time, he realizes you were never trying to be chosen. You were simply giving him the chance to rise to your level. The truth is, when a man senses that your standards aren't negotiable, it does something to him. It forces him to reflect, to ask himself, why did she leave? What did I miss? What was I not giving her? And those questions are powerful because they aren't born from pressure or guilt. They're born from your absence, from your unapologetic self-respect. Strength isn't loud, it's quiet, it's subtle. It's in the way you stop reaching out. It's in the way you stop explaining yourself. It's in the way you choose peace over chaos. And it's in the way you show, without words, that if someone can't show up for you with clarity and effort, you're willing to walk away, no matter how much you care. That's the kind of strength that lingers in someone's mind, long after you've gone, long after they've scrolled past your photos or tried to distract themselves with someone else. They remember how you left, how calm you were, how clear, how strong. See, anyone can leave in anger. Anyone can storm off and slam a door. But not everyone can walk away with grace. Not everyone can choose themselves without needing someone to feel guilty for not choosing them first. And that's what men fall hard for. Not the drama, not the pleading, but the rare kind of strength that says, I love you, but I love me more. And I won't stay where I'm not truly seen. That's what burns into their memory. That's what keeps them up at night, months later, wondering how they let someone like you slip through their fingers. Because the truth is, when you love someone deeply, but still choose to walk away for your own well-being, it forces them to confront a part of themselves they weren't ready to face. And that confrontation, that's where growth begins. That's where regret seeps in. That's when they realize, maybe for the first time, that what they had wasn't just someone who cared. It was someone who was strong enough to let go when holding on meant losing herself. That's why he falls harder after you leave. Because your strength rewrote the entire story in his mind. You stopped being someone he could figure out later and became someone he may never get the chance to figure out again. And that, more than anything, changes everything. So remember, it's not just that you walked away, it's how you did it. That quiet, powerful strength you showed, that's what stays with him. When a woman finally walks away, really walks away, it does something powerful. It forces him to sit alone with the version of himself that didn't step up. And in that silence, he starts to remember things. Not just what you looked like or how you made him laugh, but the way you made him feel seen, respected, and valued without ever having to demand it. You see, there's something most men don't realize when they're caught in the comfort of having someone good in their life. They confuse consistency for permanence. They think that just because you're there today, you'll still be there tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. So they stop trying. They stop showing up. They assume your love is unconditional and endless, and they forget that at any moment, you have the strength to walk away if your needs aren't being met. And then, one day, you do. Not with drama, not with a fight, not with ultimatums or shouting, but with quiet finality, with dignity. And it's that hits him the hardest. Because now, for the first time, he's forced to compare reality to what he used to take for granted. He starts seeing other people. He goes back into the world thinking he can replace what he had, or at least numb the absence. But nothing compares. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real. You were emotionally available. You actually listened. You remembered what he said. You believed in his potential. You were warm in your affection, but firm in your boundaries. You brought depth into his life without needing to control him. And now, in your absence, he realizes how rare that is. He's on a date with someone new, and the conversation feels flat. The banter isn't there. Or worse, there's no emotional depth, no mutual understanding, no history. And instead of being excited, he feels empty. He starts to miss you, not in the obvious moments, but in the quiet ones. The way your laugh filled the silence, the way your touch felt safe, the way you challenged him to be better without making him feel small. That's when he gets it, that what you gave wasn't just attention or affection, it was presence. And that presence, that emotional investment, that soul-level care, it's not something you stumble across every day. He looks back and realizes you weren't just someone he was dating, you were the one who really got him, who saw the parts he didn't show everyone, who held space for him in a way no one else had. And now that space is gone. This is the moment that breaks him a little, because now he has the clarity he didn't have before, the clarity that only comes with hindsight. When he had you, he thought he had time. He thought he could do the bare minimum and you'd stay. He thought your love would wait for him to grow up, to get serious, to finally choose you properly. But now he knows he never really chose you, not in the way that mattered. And here's the irony. The very thing that makes him fall for you now is the fact that you stopped waiting to be chosen. You chose yourself. You walked. And your absence said what your words couldn't. I'm not afraid to be alone if it means being respected. That's powerful. He falls hard now because you are no longer the woman who needed him. You are the woman who chose her worth over his potential. And that realization creates a hunger in him, not just to have you back, but to be the kind of man you would come back for. And maybe he'll try. Maybe he'll come back with the right words, with promises of change, or maybe he'll stay silent, knowing he lost something rare. Either way, the shift has happened. He finally sees you clearly, not as an option, not as someone nice to have, but as the one who brought real meaning into his life. And that kind of loss doesn't fade. It lingers, because when a woman of depth walks away with her head held high, she doesn't just leave a relationship, she leaves a mirror behind. One that shows him exactly who he was and exactly what he let slip through his fingers. And that is when he falls the hardest.